Hi, this is Grant with Grant's Rock Warehouse, and today I've got a panel, and I've asked this panel to pick three of their favorite obscure albums to share with the class. And what we're going to do, we're just going to go around. We're going to start out with Rand. We're going to go to John, and then Ryan, then Todd, then John the Music Nut, and then Nick. And I'll finish up. But we're just going to go through, discuss real quickly our three favorite albums. And I mean, the whole goal here is to hopefully turn on the viewers to something maybe they've never heard of. I mean, that's part of this whole channel, is to throw some music out there that you're unfamiliar with, and maybe you'd be into it. And so what I'm going to do at the end, I'm just going to list at the end of the video everybody's mentions, and hopefully you can pick these records up and enjoy them and have fun. So let's start off. Rand, what do you got?
Well, I want to start out with a band that's not obscure, but that they have an obscure album, and I don't think most people probably don't know about it. And it's called Key Studio. And it's the studio cuts from two albums that were released in 1997 and 1998 called Keys to Ascension 1 and 2. And the songs are absolutely prog. Footprints, Be the One, Mind Drive, Long Song, Bring Me to the Power, I love it. Sign Language, it's a nice little thing with Rick Wakeman and Steve Howe. And That Is, which is a whole album side. It's completely like 20 minutes or whatever. And Children of the Light. I love this album so much. And Yes has hardly done any of these songs live in concert, maybe one, two, maybe. And I can't recommend it highly enough. And my second one is a group from, I think, from Minnesota. And they started around 2001, put out an album, and then disappeared for like till 2017. And then they released this, and the band's called Bubble Math, and the album's called Edit Peptide. And it's a clever little use of the words because you can read it both ways, edit peptide back and forth. But I think this is the most exciting American prog release in like the last 30 years. This thing is just incredible. The musicianship, top notch. These guys can just play, like rings around me. I've been playing guitar since 1965, and keyboards I self-taught since 1970. And these guys are absolute maniacs on their instruments. I love that Bubble Math band, especially that album. The first one's called Such Fine Particles of the Universe, and this is like a 20% step up in degree of difficulty. Really, really, really cool stuff. If you like that, there's a name is Bubble Math, and there's a term called math rock, and it's prog that's really difficult to write, play, and listen to. And if you like that kind of stuff, I highly recommend Bubble Math. And for my third one, I've got this really obscure kind of a box set fat boy thing called National Health Complete. And I'm only going to mention really the first, or this tracks 2 through 6 for this. And the original cover looks like this. I got it on my phone here. And the members of the band are Dave Stewart on keyboards, Neil Murray on bass. He used to be in Whitesnake. And Phil Miller on guitar. He's from Hatfield in the North. And Pip Pyle on drums from Hatfield in the North. So they kind of came from that Canterbury scene out of, and vocals on this one by an amazing female singer who I absolutely adore named Amanda Parsons. If you love Renaissance and you like Annie Haslam, you will love this album because Amanda Parsons is just killer on this. The high vocals and stuff, and her tone is just angelic. And apparently she's only done this and a little bit of warbling on an album called Gilgamesh, and a little bit with Bruford on a tune called Land's End on Gradually Going Tornado. And then she's just disappeared off the scene completely. Gone. Nobody knows what happened to Amanda Parsons. She just wanted to get off the stage and stop doing it. And she's so talented. It's really sad, but yeah, I think those three albums are probably pretty obscure, and somebody here might like them.
I know, I don't know if you mentioned it, or I know Pete Pardo's mentioned National Health on Sea of Tranquility.
Yes.
Well, most people, I will say, and I guess I should show that picture maybe since I'm talking about it, but most people say that their best album is the second one called I forget the picture. I can't do it. Of Cues and Cures, and it's got a different vocalist. It's got the bass player John Greaves, which is a different bass player. He came from a band called Henry Cow. He does all the singing. There's no female vocals on this album. It is a brutal prog album. I would, I mean, the other one I talked about is a little bit more. I mean, there's a lot of fancy stuff going on, but it's not like hard hitting like a baseball bat in your cheek. The second one of Cues and Cures is really, really intense, and I can't recommend that band high enough. I love National Health, and the amazing thing about it is they released that first album in 1978 when all the major prog bands were not prog, not anymore, like Gentle Giant and Yes to a Point with Tormato and some of those other big, freaking Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Love Beach. That's the perfect example of how they weren't doing prog anymore. And National Health just came out of the woodwork doing this amazing complex music. It didn't last very long, but it was gutsy. Them in UK, they were the first. I mean, they were the only major two prog bands that were really going at it at that time. And Bill Bruford, I should say, Bill Bruford used to play drums in this band before the albums were released. He's on an album that you can get now called Missing Pieces, and it's got Bill Bruford all over it. And it's just excellent. Cool. And also more Amanda Parsons was in that band. So, and these guys couldn't get arrested because it's that case where you're too talented to get noticed.
Super good choices.
Thanks.
I was going to have John go, but Todd, do you want to go first in case you have to drop out?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go next.
And then we'll go John, and then we'll go Ryan. Okay, go ahead, Todd.
Okay, so the first album I'm going to talk about, I talked about on the Contrarians once as my favorite post-2000s album, and I never shut up about this album because it's fantastic. It's IQ, The Road of Bones. Now, IQ, a lot of people know about, but they didn't quite get as popular as Marillion and a lot of the other, they're considered one of the neo-prog bands that came out in the 80s. But this album right here, this is from 2014. It's their second to last album. They have another one after this. But this album is so instrumentally is so intense, and it's downright frightening. I mean, the Mellotron chorus, I mean, it sounds like a demented chorus from hell. It's like really, I mean, it's really edgy. And there's one song, Without Walls, that has this middle section where the Mellotron chorus starts playing backwards or sounding like it's playing backwards, and it's just terrifying. And also really beautiful. Just breathtaking, some of the songs. And there are two discs, but the second disc is kind of just extra songs. The real piece of art is these 5 tracks on the top. And man, this is something, I already love this band. And when I heard this album, it actually absolutely blew me away. Probably my favorite progressive rock album of all time. So even though IQ is not terribly obscure, I wanted to say something about it because I don't think it gets enough love. So that's my number 1. My number 2 is something called Public Symphony. And I believe this band, 2005. It's 2 guys, and they were recording engineers in the UK. And here, I want to get their names right. Their names are, let me see, James Reynolds and Dobbs Vi. And they were peripherally involved in some kind of smooth electronica kind of groups. Like, I think one of them managed 07 and Dido. So they were working in the late 90s and the early 2000s. But this album right here, it first was only a download, and I bought it on iTunes, and then a little bit later they self-financed a CD, and they have a website, and that's just about all there is. Their follow-up album to this is called Inspire, and it's basically this album remixed. So these 11 songs are all they've ever done. It's like a slightly less dramatic version of the Blue Nile. So it's sparsely, the instrumentation is pretty sparse. It's a drum machine with some real drums. Guitars very light on the effects, if there are any effects at all on the guitars. Very pure sounding electric guitars and really lush keyboards. And it really, I mean, it's one of those albums that's really uplifting music. So if you're one of those people who don't like very earnest music, it wouldn't be for you. But it's kind of motivational in its themes. So really great band. I don't think they used to play out in the UK, but I don't think they've been active in a very long time. My third choice is kind of a prog rock supergroup called Kino. And Kino, again, might be pushing it for being obscure, but this is basically John Mitchell from It Bites and John Beck, the keyboardist from It Bites, and which is a relatively obscure prog band that started in the 80s, and Pete Cherabas from Marillion on bass, and Chris Maitland, the original drummer from Porcupine Tree. And this album came out in 2000. I was looking for the date on it, and since this is a reissue, it only has the date it was reissued, which was 2017, but I think 2004 is when this came out. And just some really absolutely fantastic songwriting, completely split between prog rock and pop rock and mainstream rock. And so it's got lots of key changes and lots of relatively challenging instrumental sections, but also the songs are structured like pop songs. So they're easy to get into, very mainstream, but very melodic. And I really like this album quite a bit. If anybody has ever heard John Mitchell, he's done some other things. He's made some solo albums, and he's made some albums under the name Lonely Robot. And he's got a fantastic voice, like a really, really good voice. They made a second album after that called Radio Voltaire from 2018, but it's not as good as the first one. It's basically just two of the guys, and then Craig Blundell plays drums on it, which Craig Blundell is great, but it just doesn't have the same. It's a very good album. It just doesn't have the same magic that the first one has. So those are my three.
Todd,
yes.
That CD that you showed first picture.
Yeah.
That's on the CD. I got that, and it came with a bonus DVD.
Oh, did it really? Yeah, I had this.
It shows.
I had the CD back in the day, but it was only just the regular one with just the CD.
I guess I lucked out because
I didn't know that.
It shows them performing in concert. It's really good.
Oh, that's great. I'll have to look for that.
They're like in a bar or something.
Cool. Excellent choice. I was going to ask you real quick, the Blue Nile. Are you a fan of Blue Nile?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I just saw something in the used bins. It's been sitting there for a while.
Oh, pick it up.
I don't know that much about them, but I'll get it. It's not very expensive. It's just been sitting there.
That's the Blue Nile's only concert I've ever been to where they only had 2 albums out at the time I saw them, which was in the 90s. And when they got done, they got an encore, and they said, we don't know any other songs, so we're going to have to play a couple of them again. Which I always thought was really fun. Yeah.
But I'm just triggered that since I saw it and you mentioned it, I would have.
I own that IQ CD. I haven't even listened to it yet.
Oh, Rand.
Isn't that about a serial killer?
What's that?
Isn't the lyrics about a serial killer?
It's, you know what? I'm not totally sure. It's definitely super, super, super dark. Could very well be. It's about a guy who loses somebody and desperately tries to figure out a way to bring her back. So very dark.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, John Clauser, you're up.
Okay, so I was trying to think of what I could throw out there. So, back in the so my picks are going to be more on the heavier side. So, that's where I'm going to go. So, in the late '80s, early '90s, I was really into Metal Blade. That was the label of choice for me, and I can probably think of a bunch of bands that no one's ever heard of, but they really had some good stuff. And because there were some albums that over the years stuck with me. I talked about the band Warlord and the album Deliver Us on a previous the Perfectly Synced albums. But there was other bands, Fates Warning, Omen, first Flotsam and Jetsam album was on Metal Blade. There was a lot of bands that really stuck with me, and then there was a few little known bands that I thought was just as good, and I kind of wondered what happened to them. This band being one of them, a band called Tyrant, and this album is called Legions of the Dead. Very operatic vocal, a lot of doom and speed, kind of thrash kind of sound. They've produced 4 albums in their career. This one was called Too Late to Pray, also on Metal Blade originally. These the first 3 I'm showing, these are all reissues. This one's called King of Kings. I believe this came out in the late 2000s. They then got a singer change, and they came out with this one called Hereafter. And I thought this was a fantastic release from 2020. I really liked this album. I liked the new singer. Not that the old one was bad. I liked him too, but I liked the new singer from this one. I just felt it was really good and doomy, heavy, just a really strong album. My next choice, whoops, how did that get in there? No, we don't want to show this off. This is something I did. So never mind. Okay. Never mind. Sorry. Bad, shameless plug. Okay. My next choice is,
I want one.
All right.
That's really obscure.
It's
This thing's
obscure.
really obscure.
It fits.
Anyway, so my next choice is, this is going to be a band from the Netherlands, and they were considered to be probably one of the first Dutch heavy metal bands to come out of the area. And it wasn't until maybe 2020 until I finally even heard of these guys. And they came out in like 1979. And I am talking about, I'm going to show up a vinyl here, because I came across this one. This band called Picture. This is a
Nice
song.
cover.
This is an album called Eternal Dark. And I found that one actually at a record convention. It was the first time I'd seen a vinyl of theirs in the wild. And I'm like, ooh, I don't care how much it is. I'm getting it. However, this one, Diamond Dreamer, this baby is the one I would highly recommend anybody to get. If I had heard this in 1982, I bet I would have listened to this more than I would have Number of the Beast or Screaming for Vengeance.
Oh, wow.
I just really dug this album. It kind of has a little bit of mix of maybe some AC/DC, a little bit of maybe Golden Earring, New Wabum, maybe some UFO probably thrown in there. A lot of different kind of stuff like that. The singer, he was only on this album. He was an Israeli guy, and don't ask me to try to pronounce his name because I don't think I can. But he was only on this one album, unfortunately. But his vocals just really soar. I think they certainly rival Bruce Dickinson and Rob Halford as far as I'm concerned. Again, another band though, they've been around for a while. They've got a bunch of albums. I think this one's the most recent, called Wings. I think this came out in late 2017, 2018. Good band. I really have gotten to like these guys. I would listen to Diamond Dreamer almost endlessly in my car. That's just how much I like the album. You could probably find it on Spotify. These reissues here for this particular one was on a record label called Dive Bomb Records. So you could probably find it there. finding original vinyl copies is going to be pretty pricey. And everything's international. So I've not seen much in the way of anybody selling much in the United States for Diamond Dreamer. And my last band of choice, and this is one I kind of want to do a video on personally because I love this band. And this might be a tough cover to read. This band called Tall Stories. Now, Tall Stories came out in the early 90s. You might recognize one of these guys, the third guy here. That's Steve Azeri. He would front this other band called Journey for a little while.
Never heard of.
Yeah, he was. I'm trying to think of the albums he was on. Late '90s into the 2000s, before Arnell. It was after Steve Perry left the last time. So and I think he lasted a couple of albums on there. This album, however, straight up AOR, good hard rock, great songs. Wild on the Run is a wonderful song. Chain of Love, Crawling Back, Sister Mercy, Stay With Me. I mean, this album, I just love this album start to finish. Very hard to come by. It took me a while to really find a good copy of this on CD again. But what I didn't know until about 10, 12 years or more ago is they had released a second album in the mid 2000s after Steve Azeri had left Journey. And this also is a very, very good album. I also highly recommend this. This one's called Skyscraper. Also great songs like Tomorrow, Original Sin, Pictures of Summer, River Rise, Stay, Eternal Light. I mean, there's, again, strong album, great guitar work. It was just a group of studio musicians who got together and they formed this little band. I had heard of them. I was actually going to try to go see Mr. Big up in Baltimore and up at this club called Hammerjacks. But it was 1990, 91 or whatever it was, because I think they were touring for Lean Into It. And Tall Stories was the opening act. Only dumb thing of it was I just figured, oh, well, Hammerjacks is a bar, it's a club. I figured you're just going to pay the whatever the fee is, the cover charge, and that's how you get in, right? Wrong. I didn't know you had to buy a ticket. What did I know in 1991? I just didn't think of it like you would an arena or a theater, because I didn't think of Hammerjacks like that. So anyway, Tall Stories was opening up, and I wanted to hear what they sounded like. And we listened to that on the way up, and I just absolutely fell in love with the band. So there you go. There's my 3 picks, and I'm going to get some.
That's
I'm going to get
one.
some water because I'm thirsty.
But what I wanted to say
Yeah.
is that Tall Story CD.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that album cover in years. I remember seeing it in the cheapie bins. What year did you say that came out?
Let me make sure. I believe it was 1991.
Gosh, I haven't seen
I
that.
remember that too. That looked familiar to me. I've seen that before.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that in the wild in years.
I don't think it's available on streaming services. You might find it on YouTube or something, but I don't think it's available on like iTunes or Spotify or anything like that.
I mean, that went straight to the cutout bin. It did not sell at all.
Yeah, I think the timing on that one hurt that album. Because it was like right as grunge was getting going and and stuff like that. But even though this is more of like I said, it's more of an AOR hard rock kind of sound, it was very accessible, but it just nobody was going to give it a chance. So
yeah, it's probably timing for some reason, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Well, if I ever see it, I'll pick it up. You never know. I may see it again. You never know. So those are good choices. All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Ryan, what do you got?
All right. So this is my episode where I get to talk about some weird stuff that you wouldn't usually hear about, like
what it's
John,
about,
especially.
And we'll be here for 3 hours, so y'all get your drinks.
Yeah, let me go get my drink.
I'm the concise one. That's the funny part.
See, Nick's already got his drink, and so does John. Both Johns have drinks, and Nick. And everybody, okay, everybody's got a drink. All right, Ryan, go. Let it rip. Let's see what. I'm interested to hear what you've got.
Okay, so this first album here is probably the most obscure on my list. The other ones, I don't know exactly how obscure they are. They're just not bands you hear about every day. But this first one, it's an album called Fire Sign by Corey Braverman, I think her name is. She's just named Corey on the album. So this came out in 1976. I'll read the description on the album because it sounds like they think she's going to be a lot bigger than she ended up being. A new artist, the first album, a beginning. Corey is a newcomer to Phantom, but her soulful musical life has already touched some of the greatest names in contemporary and R&B music. For instance, there was a time she appeared in a Ray Charles concert at Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C., and then there was the impromptu playing with the band around Woodstock, and the unexpected appearance with Jimi Hendrix at the Purple Onion. And now there is Corey on Phantom Records, an exciting, young, soulful singer beginning her career.
What year is that from?
1976.
Okay. All right.
This is the only thing she ever did. You try to look her up online, it's next to nothing. You could find her on YouTube, this album. You can find the Discogs info, no Wikipedia. One article, some person made a blog article that also heard this album talking about how much they love them. That's all I could really find about this album. So it's very, very, very obscure, but it's cool. I mean, it's an interesting mix of music, a little bit soul, a little funky, a little like yacht rocky, a little disco at times, little singer-songwriter type of stuff. I'd say if you like musicians like Steely Dan, Carly Simon, or stuff in that realm, really, it might be of interest to you. It's a pretty cool album. I mean, the best thing about it is it has some really good musicians on it. So on the drums, you have Steve Gadd, who's one of the best drummers ever. Also was in Steely Dan for the infamous Asia album. So, and a lot of other great stuff. I mean, that's actually the reason I picked this album up, is because I saw Steve Gadd's name on it. It's something I tend to do, and I'm rarely disappointed because there's usually a lot of other really good musicians on the album. I noticed that with like Roberta Flack records and stuff, like killer bands on those albums. But you also have like Bob Babbitt, who played bass and a lot of like funk Motown type of stuff. They're probably the biggest names on here. But yeah, it's a cool album. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like amazing. I did do a review of it on my website or my Facebook page, Ryan's Final Destination. At the time, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Today, listening to it again, I'd probably give it a 7. Like, it's a solid record. I mean, I think my favorite song on it's actually the title track. It's like a really lush ballad type of song, just really good music on it. Her voice is really nice. But there's some fantastic bass playing on this record and drumming as well. Like, the band just smokes on this album. So I think if you like to listen to things and appreciate it for good studio musicians, then this is one to check out because the band really smokes. And she's a talented singer as well. They do a cover of I Saw the Light by Todd Rundgren on here, which is pretty good also. It's very different than the original, but I enjoy it. And yeah, I mean, all the songs on here are pretty cool. I think side 1's probably better than side 2, but I enjoy it. And I think she probably could have had more of a career. I don't know what happened to make it only the one album that came out. I guess probably just didn't sell enough or whatever, but it's pretty solid, especially if you get into like soft rock or like the mid 70s. My second albums, there's two directions I could go. I could go with two albums that aren't quite as obscure. or I could go with two that are obscure. So I'm gonna go obscure. It's probably the weirdest choice of the entire day. So if you really know me, you know that I do kind of like to get some weird, like, novelty records, especially that involve some little chipmunks called Alvin the Chipmunks. 'Cause I think that stuff's funny as hell. But there was also the Nutty Squirrels, and so they were a ripoff of the Alvin and the Chipmunks. It was a guy named Sasha Berlin and Don Elliott. They're like jazz musicians. So they put out, I think, 3 albums. They had a couple songs in the late 50s that did chart. And they did have a TV show briefly too, but they've faded into obscurity since because they just weren't as good as Alvin and the Chipmunks. But it is a cool album, this one here, and it's mostly covers. I mean, you have songs like I Should Have Known Better, Can't Buy My Love, Pretty Woman, Hard Day's Night, and stuff, just with like really bad version of Alvin and the Chipmunks vocals. Like, it's just not as good at all, but you do have a good band of jazz musicians that smash on this album, so that is the cool part about it. And overall, it's just funny. You could have fun with it. I mean, look at these guys. But yeah, so that one's cool. And then I am going to go with a pick that's not quite as obscure, just because I think it's an album that everybody should hear. It was obscure to me when I found it at the record store that I work at. That's actually where I found the Nutty Squirrels too. I just have too much time on my hands working in a record store part-time. But so the next album I'm going to talk about is Matching Mole. So this is a Canterbury prog band. I figure a few of you guys probably know about it because it's not like super obscure, but for people who think prog and they think, oh yes, Genesis, then yeah, you probably haven't heard of this band. So actually a lot of the members of this band overlap with National Health that Rand was just talking about. You have David Sinclair and you have Phil Miller. And you also have Bill McCormick and Robert Wyatt. And Robert Wyatt was such an amazing drummer before he became paralyzed. He actually fell out a window drunk, became paralyzed, and so he couldn't drum anymore. But he did, after that point, he just went real deep into the avant-garde, played a bunch of weird instruments, did singing on people's albums, did work with like Eno and stuff. Amongst a bunch of other musicians, and had a pretty prolific solo career even after his accident. So this is a really good album. This is probably my favorite one that he's on, honestly. I like it even more than his solo stuff and even more than Soft Machine personally, because it's much more proggy. It's jazzy, really good jams on this album, a good sense of humor on it. I mean, you know, on side 1, you have a song called Instant Pussy. On side 2, you have a song called Instant Kitten. Like, you know, they just have a good sense of humor to them. And they're very self-aware in their lyrics too. Just kind of like, I mean, I don't know like what exactly to describe now, but there's just like lyrics like, oh, I know this is dumb and stuff. Like it's goofy stuff.
I like the lyric where he goes, David's on piano, me, I'm on my drum.
Yeah.
It's a weird record.
It
is a really weird
But
record.
the second one's even weirder.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it
God,
is.
yeah. Little Red Record. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
So it was recorded in 72 and mixed in 71 it was recorded, mixed in 72. So it's been around for a while. And yeah, I just really love this album. It's one of my favorite prog albums personally, especially for a band that didn't have a real big catalog. I think they only had the 2 records because he had his accident.
There's 2 live albums. One's from the BBC, and
I can't remember. Was Wyatt still in Soft Machine when he did this project too? I can't remember. Or he already quit Soft Machine?
Uh,
I think he was already out.
Was he
I
already
think he
out?
was too. I think he was only on the first.
He leaves on, doesn't he?
Third.
He leaves after Soft Machine 4.
Oh, 4. Yeah, 4.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Can't remember.
I highly recommend this. Great musicianship on it, fun
Absolutely.
lyrics, definitely like that Canterbury sense of humor and like kind of like the storytelling, kind of like childlike qualities of the music that the Canterbury often had. Yeah, it's just really good stuff and a great introduction to some awesome musicians if you haven't heard them before.
Yeah, it's a
Good
good
choice.
choice.
Love it.
Excellent
Got
work.
the album in the other room, as a matter of fact. I love that record.
Yeah, I've got both of those. And I
Yeah,
got
me
a
too.
couple other Robert Wyatt ones. I can't remember what they are offhand.
Rock Bottom.
I do have Rock Bottom.
That's classic. That was how
Something else.
I got introduced to Robert Wyatt, was Rock Bottom. I was like, holy crap, this is some of the weirdest stuff I've ever heard.
It's a weird
bizarre.
album.
Then
It's out there.
yeah, so then I naturally went to Soft Machine.
Mhm.
And after that, Matching Mole. And then I started to see his name pop up on a bunch of other albums. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Cool. Excellent choice.
Thanks.
Well, we're going to go with John the Music Nut. John, let's hear what you got.
Okay. Thank you, Grant.
You're
Great to
welcome.
see you.
Nice to have you.
Thank you. Well, my first disc that I'm going to do is by far the most obscure of the 3 albums or 3 artists I'm going to talk about. Now, this artist I discovered at the Mock Chunk Opera House about 8 years ago. Back then, they used to bring in a lot of artists who were off the beaten path that you weren't really going to see in the clubs in particular. A lot of the same bands play the same circuit. They'll hit the same clubs every year. This band doesn't typically do that. They'll do a few shows and that'll be it. And they do a lot of shows in the UK. So I saw them and they blew me away, and I've been a fan ever since. And they're from New York City, and they have a fantastic songwriter named Jonathan Spottiswoode, and the name of the band is Spottiswoode and His Enemies, and the album's called Salvation. This album's from 2008. What do they sound like? Well, you can't put them in a box. But if I was to describe their music, it would be a little bit of country meets vocal jazz meets gospel meets R&B meets singer-songwriter folk music. 17 songs, 64 minutes, and as Tom York would say, everything is in its right place. It's best heard in one sitting, and they can go from this smooth jazz sound to a mellow song, and they can go into very dramatic in a heartbeat. And it all works well. They have a horn section, but they don't solo so much. They only solo on one song on this whole album. It's more there for the accompaniment. When I say that they sound like gospel, there's a lot. They have backing vocalists, and they will do a lot of call and response between Jonathan. As for the songs, they're all magnificent. I think Chelsea Boys, which is a Christmas song, I think that should be played every year at Christmas time all over the world. But, you're not going to hear it, but it's a great song. I mean, Can't See the Stars is a great indie rock song. Troubadour is a very mellow ballad. They do these great tearjerker ballads like Thank You. At Last, the last song of the album, starts out really slow, and then it has this very dramatic ending. It reminds you a lot of Great Gig in the Sky by Pink Floyd. A lot of great songs on here. Dirty Fingerprints is my favorite song on the album. But to what I've read when people say, who can you compare this band to? The most I see is Nick Cave. And I can see that. It does sound like a lot of Nick Cave's later solo stuff. But I love Spazwood and His Enemies. I have several of their albums. They have 8 albums. They're hard to find their CDs unless you go see them live, but you can buy their music from Bandcamp. You can download their albums, and the artists get paid. It's not stealing. The artists get paid, and Bandcamp really does a great job with the independent artists. So Spazwood and His Enemies, a band and an album I would recommend so much. That's Salvation from 2008. Now, my next album is by a band who had a huge hit in 1986. And then the main songwriter went solo, and he had another hit in 1992. But in between there, this band made a couple other albums. They had the Sophomore Slump album, was a good album, but didn't have a hit. Then they made this third album. And I'll tell you what, one of the great lost rock albums is this one right here. It's the Georgia Satellites, In the Land of Salvation and Sin. Now, this came out in 1989. They had a video for a song called Another Chance. It got played twice and it sank without a trace. A lot of people compare it to Ooh La La by The Faces because it's an acoustic campfire sing-along song. But it's actually it's a better song than that one. This is a breakup record. Dan Baird, their main songwriter, one of the great rock and roll songwriters around, was going through a divorce when he made this album. And this album works as great as a breakup record. You don't listen to the lyrics. It's just a bunch of great rock and roll. So many great songs, so many great choruses. All Over But the Crying hit album-oriented rock radio back in 89. Great chorus. Great choruses all over this album. I think 6 Years Gone would have been a great hit in the 1970s. Sweet Blue Midnight is the country tearjerker. Dan sings with Nicolette Larson, who did the song Lotta Love that Neil Young originally wrote, and then Nicolette Larson redid it. She gave it more of a New York sound. But so many great songs on here. Shake That Thing is their ode to Lowell George. And the Georgia Satellites drummer Mauro Magellan, he plays this beat just like Fat Man in the Bathtub. The song works very, very well. Other great songs on here. Bring Down the Hammer, Days Gone By, Crazy, Dan Takes 5. But again, even when the songs are rocking, he's singing about going through the divorce. I mean, a lot of songs have this retrospective feel. Then you got songs that are like, all right, I'm free. And then you got these songs that are like, oh, Jesus, what did I do? So, but this is a fantastic record, and I recommend it to anyone, regardless of what you're going through.
I have never seen that record. It must have came out and just sank like a stone, because I've never seen it.
It's the only album of the three I'm going to talk about that charted. It went to number 130 on Billboard.
It's still on. What label were they on? I can't remember.
Oh,
it's still on a major label, right?
They were on a major. I think they were on Elektra.
Yeah, I think they were.
Yeah, they were on Elektra. Like, this is Elektra. It says it right here. Yeah. I thought maybe it got bought out by.
Hold that up again, closer to the.
Absolutely.
I have never seen that. I know the Georgia Satellites, but I'm not familiar with that record at all.
Yeah, they were no one-hit wonder. Dan Baird was an amazing songwriter. I mean, that first album with "Keep Your Hands to Yourself" on it, big hit, and Battleship Chains and all that. That's a good album, but this album is insane.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of the guys remember that they played that MTV nonstop.
Yes, they did.
I mean, I wanted to jump out of a window.
Yeah, like Stairway to Heaven too many times.
But now you hardly ever hear that song. Very on classic rock. Every now and then you may hear it around here, but I think it's virtually forgotten.
You hear it on like classic rewind on Sirius XM.
Yeah, you probably hear on Sirius and stuff, but not on
But none of their
regular
other songs.
terrestrial radio. You don't hardly anymore.
No.
I
unless
played
they're
it. I
focused
played
on
that.
news.
I played that "Keep Your Hands to Yourself" so many times in bars. I thought I wrote it.
You should have gotten royalties from it.
It's fun to play. I mean, it really is. I can't say it isn't, but I just got so tired of hearing it. Jeez.
Great 3-chord rock and roll. And I mean, Dan Baer did it so well. I mean, his solo albums are great. He has a band called Homemade Sin that he's been playing with a bunch of years. They're great too. Yeah.
He still tours around.
Yes, he does. I saw him a few years ago. You ever go to Sellersville Theater, Nick?
Well, if you were there at that show, then you watched my band open up for him, although I was on vacation for that show. But
Who's that?
my band, Jim George, opened for him.
Oh, really?
Yep. Dan was a great guy, and he had some health issues, I know, the last couple of years, health battles, and I think his wife as well, too. But nice guy, very generous, and I wish I'd made the gig, but it was right before COVID, I believe. But yeah, you got to see my band. Well, not my band, but I'm the bass player.
I'm thinking about this now. That was in 19?
I believe so. Well, yeah, I believe so.
Okay, I missed them in 19.
Oh well,
I saw them in 18.
It might have been 18 actually. We were up at Sellersville a couple times. So we're sandwiched in a couple shows. So it might have been 18.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm
back in Jack.
a great guy. He was great. I think he has leukemia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because I remember that show got postponed for a little while because he was having some health issues, and they rescheduled it for, I believe it was in July. So
Not to hijack this, but he did a very obscure track with my beloved Steve Marriott in the mid '80s.
Nice.
When the Georgia Satellites were touring all over the UK, and they got to be friends with Marriott, and it's called the Poll Tax Blues, and it's really good. And Marriott's at his finest, and they're good friends. I think there was a connection there because Marriott used to live in Atlanta, where these guys were from. But yeah, so he's got he owns a guitar that was Steve Marriott's Telecaster.
nice.
And it's sort of like a Frankenstein guitar. It's part of it is from Ian McLagan's Telecaster, and part of it's from Marriott's Telecaster. I forget which is which. It's like the neck and the body they swapped out.
It's probably from Small Faces era, probably.
It was, yeah. And when you see it, Dan plays it, he beat the hell out of it. But yeah, it's great. And there's stuff on YouTube. He talks about it. But yeah,
I have to look
Nick.
that up.
yeah.
Hey Nick, I saw Humble Pie 50 years ago in Las Vegas
You were to the top of the mountain.
with Clem Clemson on guitar.
Yeah, you're still at the top of the mountain.
It was the Smoking Tour, and I just bought the record, and so we went and saw them. They were great.
I bow down to you.
No, I'm just old. I'll be 70 in September.
But you saw all the cool bands.
I did see some pretty cool bands.
Yeah.
I'm
We
jealous.
had to do a show one time of all the cool bands that I've seen, and I'll try to find my ticket stubs and stuff, and maybe we can do that. And if nobody wants to, I'll do it on my Saucer Rock channel.
There you go. All right, John, you got a third one, right?
Yes,
I
I
want
do.
to make sure we're on track.
Oh, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
very good.
No, you guys are fine.
Oh, it's all good. Love it.
I wanted to
Love
make sure he only did two, I think. Okay.
Yeah, so my third artist is an artist that we lost too soon. A fantastic songwriter, wicked guitar player. Blues were at his core, but he was restless, a wonderful musician. You can give me all the albums by this guy and put me on a desert island, and I'm set for the rest of my life. And he did get a push. He was on Columbia Records for a few albums. He opened for Tom Petty on the Into the Great Wide Open tour in 91, I believe it would be. But he got a little bit of airplay in 91. And then after that, it was a cult following, because after that, all of his albums were different. And I freaking love Chris Whitley. He is fantastic.
Chris Whitley.
This is his debut, his American debut, because he made a couple albums in Belgium that I never heard. I don't know if you can ever find them, but this album's called Living with the Law, and the title song And Big Sky Country got a little bit of airplay on your album, Oriented Rock Stations. Fantastic songwriter. It was produced by Malcolm Byrne, and this is probably his most accessible album because at his best, it was Chris, a guitar, and a foot stomp, and that's all he needed. But here, they were trying to break him through, and it's a shame that this did not become big because there are so many great songs on here that I can still hear if they could play these on classic rock stations now, and they would still fit in. Big Sky Country, Living with the Law, Poison Girl. There's a lot of drama on this album, a lot of songs that start out really slow and quiet. Like Make the Dirt Stick is a wonderful song like that, and then it just gets heavy and nasty during the choruses. Dust Radio is a great song. Phone Call from Leavenworth is a fantastic song. It's this acoustic blues that I've put on so many mixtapes and CDs over the years. And I Won't Forget You Every Day. It's a great song. Look What Love Has Done is a very good ballad. Border Town is a great song. The thing about these songs, though, even though they paint this picture of like desert and peace, the things he's singing about are very dark. And after this, he went 4 years between the next album, and the next album was like this wicked grunge meets Jimi Hendrix thing. And I thought it was even better, but very few other people felt the same way I did, because I think he put a video out, sank without a trace. The album sank without a trace. And then he had just a cult following. He was one of these musicians who I think he got more love from musicians. Bruce Springsteen loved his music. John Mayer loved his music. When he died, Dave Matthews said, I listen to his music. I actually treasure it more than my own. But he went for all different directions on each album. He did like a jazz album with Billy Martin and Chris Wood from Medeski, Martin and Wood. He made this wicked acoustic blues album called War Crime Blues. He made a performance piece called Soft Dangerous Shores. That was his last album. But Chris Whitley's my obscure artist, one of my favorite artists. I'll be listening to him till I die.
I remember years ago, he was one of those artists that I think, I don't remember what label he was on, but didn't he, was it Columbia?
Yeah, his first
Arista or something?
His first three were on Columbia.
But I mean, they weren't in print very long, and they ended up going out of print. And I remember back in the, early 2000s or something, some of those CDs were going for quite a bit of money.
They're still hard to find.
Like I said, I keep saying I never see any of these in the wild. Every now and then you would see a used copy of his stuff, but man, you never see anything anymore. He's like totally obscure. So you're right on track.
Well, this one here, I went on Amazon the other day. You can still get this for $9.
Okay. But there's another one that's worth a lot more, or it was.
Well, Din of Ecstasy was his next album, and then he did Terra Incognita after that. That's a hard to find one. But then the albums he did on the indie labels, who he loved the indie labels because they just let him be himself, and they weren't giving him pressure trying to make a hit.
Yeah.
Dirt Floor was a great album. That's a hard one to find now. I only have the original. I burned it from eMusic, which is like Bandcamp. It's an artist. It's a site where the artists get paid, and they really focus on the independent artist. That's a hard one to find. I've been looking for an original copy of that and original copy of Hotel Vast Horizon for a long time.
Yeah,
and they're like $50 used, and they'll be from another country, and you got to pay like $20 shipping. But
could be bootlegs. You never know.
That's true too. But no, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. Excellent choice.
Thank you.
Nick, what you got?
Oh, good. Hey, in honor of our host who's from Ohio,
I am from Ohio. Yes.
I've got my National
Rock and
Cleveland
roll.
Style Polka Hall of Fame shirt,
Oh my God! Look at you.
and I do wear it. Of
course.
I'm going to have three artists that are fairly well known. Some obscure albums. The first one will probably not be obscure to any Beatles fan. It's in the Beatles family, or to anyone maybe over the age of 55. I think if you're under 55, you may not know this. I know Grant's going to know this album. So if you feel it's not obscure enough, just gong me or
no.
But the first one I'm going to pick is from one of the U.S.'s best songwriters of all time, who left us too soon. But it's Harry Nilsson, and it's Son of Schmilsson.
There you go.
And I consider that an obscure album because his other albums, especially the one before it, Nilsson Schmilsson, gets all the accolades. This album, when you talk about whether it's obscure or not, it actually went gold, had a minor hit, and actually went to number 12 on the charts. But you never hear anybody talk about it. You never hear it being mentioned in anything. But I listen to this album once or twice a year. I always come back to it. I discovered it in around 1980 or 81. I was around 11 years old. And it's at a time when I'm listening to or reading Mad Magazine, discovering that, and discovering Monty Python, and listening to Dr. Demento. So trying to subversion. That's the whole idea here. A year or two, I'll be discovering the Marx Brothers and SCTV. But this album is great because it's subversive. Nilsson deconstructs rock songs. He deconstructs a country song. You get cursing. So for a pre-teenage kid, it was awesome. And he takes the piss out of all these genres, but yet he has songs in there that are serious. So I like it for that reason. The Beatles Connection, which Grant probably knows, Ringo Starr's all over this thing.
Yeah.
George Harrison's on it. Klaus Vormann plays on it. Peter Frampton's all over this. Some Stones connections, Nicky Hopkins, Bobby Keys. I find the album to be just a straight ahead rocker. It sounds great still to this day. I find it, even after many listens, to be amusing. So I like it. I mean, working, you listen to the song and you hear a false start with a guy with Harry burping, and then he goes on to another song. He has a song called I'd Rather Be Dead, and he has this senior citizen choir, and they're singing I'd rather be dead than wet my bed. It's fantastic. That's a sing-along. I'd play that in a bar. So that would be my third one, and probably the most well-known. But I think Son of Schmilsson is an album that everybody should check out and probably own.
If I remember right, didn't RCA wasn't really into releasing that, were they? I don't think.
And I think there were some issues. He ended up having a falling out with Richard Perry, the producer. But and I just read about this, that they did a lot of extensive filming of the sessions that might be leaking out onto YouTube. So I know there's a lot of film on this thing, but be exciting to see. But
probably a lot of substance abuse.
Oh, a ton. Yeah. I mean, a year or two later, he's hanging out with Lennon and blowing his voice out. But but yeah, and of course, he has more obscure albums than this. But this, it's an accessible album, and it's a lot of fun. And it's sad no one talks about this. The minor hit was Spaceman, which is a great song. I mean, it still holds up to this day.
I'll tell you what, Nick. I think "You're Breaking My Heart" is one of the great love songs of all time.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, with dropping F-bombs in there too. It's the best.
Absolutely.
And I'm actually partial to Joy because it's a mock-up of a country song, and it's so silly. So, but anyway, that'd be my number 3. Number 2, I'll go more in the hard rock metal vein. I'm usually not a fan of projects. Sometimes the record companies slapping guys together and they just sort of get something, they throw it out there and it doesn't do anything. But this one's particularly inspired. It came out in 2000, and the name of the band was called Super Shine. See if you can see that. And Super Shine is a project with Doug Pinnick from King's X, who's the musician band, and always said they should be bigger. And I'm a big King's X fan, and Doug Pinnick, of course, is he plays this hard rock metal stuff. He has this soulful voice.
Oh, it's
It's
great.
so out of place. And then he gets together with the founder and main guitar riff master from Trouble by the name of Bruce Franklin. So what you get is like this fusing together of the best elements of King's X and really the riffage, Black Sabbath-y kind of stuff of Trouble. And you fuse that together. And I know the other guys in King's X play on it, and the drummer from Trouble plays on it. And you get an amazingly great record. It sounds like maybe Trouble with soulful vocals, or King's X with more riffs and less crazy harmonies. I was a King's X fan from the beginning, but I had to get off the wagon because it was almost like, oh, look at the 3-part harmonies we can do. They started to bludgeon me to death with that stuff. I had to jump off for a while. So if you like King's X sans the 3-part harmonies all the time, you'll really like this. They do a cover. I like covers personally, especially if it's the right kind of cover. They do a cover of Grand Funk's Shining On, which is a great smoking track. I would recommend if anyone checks this out, because I've been listening to it on the phone or on a laptop, junky stuff. It's the kind of record album that you really need to hear with great speakers or in a car. There's a heavy bottom end. It's almost like it rattles your fillings, and it's just really, really rocking album. So don't listen to it on junky stuff. So it was a different listening experience. Matter of fact, I got this album when a friend just sent it to me in the mail because he knows a King's X fan, and it was a burned CD. And he didn't give me any information on it. He put it on, and I don't think that thing left my car for years. So I think if you ask me what records I've listened to the most in the last 20 years, it might be that one. So it's good.
What year did that come out? Do you know?
2000. If you remember,
was it just like an independent release that they did, or was it like on a major label or anything?
It was independent. I know that. Oh no, so sorry. It's on a. What is that insignia? Metal Blade.
Okay, I have never. I've never
Right.
seen that record.
If you look at the comments, I checked it today. It really, the people who've heard it love it. Really gets great reviews from the citizenry. If you remember a thing years ago called MySpace,
I do.
Around 2007, I was tooling around MySpace, and I found Bruce Franklin's page, and I left a comment like, "Hey, I really like Super Shine." He responded to me as if I was the only person that ever heard the album before, because he was like, "Oh, I loved it. I love this thing so much, and I'd like to do more. And we have songs, and we could do them." And they still haven't done anything, but I know that this album at least is near and dear to his heart. And boy, if they would have toured, that would have been really something. So it's definitely worth a listen.
Cool.
And check it out on good speakers. The last one that I'm going to mention is one of my favorite albums of all time, actually. With one of my favorite artists of all time. And this is really my pitch for someone to just get one of his albums. But this is the one I think is the most accessible, yet it's also pretty obscure. And that is Jack Bruce. And it's this album called Question of Time. Mm-hmm. It's from 1989. And I discovered this in college, and I fell in love with it. And it helped take me out of a metalhead vein and introduced me to stuff that's a little more mature and sophisticated and not necessarily easy to listen to comparatively to some of his other stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's just a great album, loaded with guest stars. I'll rattle some of those names off. He dusts off an old Cream song that they never used called Hey Now Princess. He dusts off and remakes a song that he had done with Robin Trower called, was it Life on Earth? Life on Earth. He's got some world music on there. He's got some acoustic folk. He's got the rock. He's got blues. He does a cover of a Willie Dixon song that I'm not aware of anyone else doing it other than Willie Dixon, called Blues You Can't Lose. He really slows it down. It's almost like a New Orleans funeral dirge. And it might be one of my favorite blues remakes, let's say, ever. I'm stacking it up with Led Zeppelin and you name it. Humble Pie. It's just a stellar track. Off the top of my head, who's on this thing? Vernon Reid from Living Colour, Alan Holdsworth, Paul Barrere from Little Feat, Steve Jordan, drummer extraordinaire, Ginger Baker, of course, Tony Williams. Doesn't get better than that on the drums. And there's others. I think I have a list, but he just rips through stuff. Jack is in fine form with vocals. I think it might be one of his best vocal performances, and the bass is great throughout. He does some world music on there with a track or two. He co-writes with Peter Brown. So if you're ever going to buy a Jack Bruce album, which people should, it would be this album.
Yeah, I've got a Jack Bruce album, but I can't remember what it is.
I've got House Tricks and Out of the Storm.
I keep thinking it's him sitting on the ground beside of a car.
Yeah, that's that might be Things We Like. Yeah, that's his second solo album.
Yeah, I've got that. I picked that up cheap
Things
somewhere.
Things We Like with John
Things We
McLaughlin.
Like. Thank you.
Yes, John McLaughlin's on it.
Yeah, that's what is that, like 1968, isn't it?
About 70-ish.
Oh, okay.
It's 69, 70. The other solo album is his first one, which is really good, and one that you might hear about called "Songs for a Tailor," and that's a very
That was the first. That was his first solo album.
very good. And of course, he has all these other projects and side things. But if you're talking about Jack Bruce himself, and
that's where what is the name of that song about the theme? Oh, Theme from an Imaginary Western.
Right.
Love that. I love Mountain's version of it. Oh my
Right.
God, at Woodstock, Jesus,
Right.
just godly.
in preparing for this, I saw that I never even saw it released, but there's a DVD and an extra CD version of his 50th birthday thing that was on Rock Palace. And I have the CD version, but there was these other tracks that didn't make it, and there's a few from this album, and I got to find it. I found it on a streaming service, but absolutely fantastic. But if you're gonna check out Jack Bruce,
cool.
This is the one.
Yeah, I love Jack Bruce. He's just incredible.
I got a chance to see him at a club in Philadelphia, so he did a lot of these songs, and that was just amazing to see this guy. You're like front and center of this guy. He should have been in arenas, but he marched.
I saw him play with Ringo Starr.
Oh, sure.
In the All-Star Band in Eureka, California, where I was born.
Yeah.
And it was I think it was the Vertical Man Tour. Mm-hmm. And we had Gary Brooker on piano, Todd Rundgren on lead guitar.
Oh, wow.
And it was just an amazing show.
And
Todd climbed up the amps and went up into the balcony of the municipal auditorium and tried to get over the rail. I mean, he's crazy. That's a crazy.
I remember
man
Utopia back in the day had that set on the pyramid. And
yeah.
Todd would go up on the top of the pyramid and play it. I mean, that was
I think he had cables, because if he were to fell, he would have killed himself.
Let me throw in before I turn it over some more guests for the hard rock fans. Vivian Campbell shows up on this thing, and the Iceman, Albert Collins, the blues guy, and there's one more. Bernie Worrell. So
I got to get me that one. I've been wanting to get it for a long time, but I always forget.
It's the kind of album that I like to, even this day of CDs where you're picking and choosing tracks and jumping around. I put it on the start, and I'll see you at the end, and I go right through. So all 11 tracks. That's why I like the thing.
Sure. Hey, Grant, do we have time for honorable mentions?
Well, sure.
Okay, I can scoot through three of it really quick that I think are really important. First thing I'm going to show is this. It's called Freudiana.
Never heard of it.
Anybody know what this is?
Oh, no.
It's an Alan
Yes,
Parsons
I know exactly what
project
that
album.
is.
It's an Alan Parsons project album that Alan Parsons wasn't allowed to put his name on, so Eric Wolfson kept his name off of it. But he does give him credit. It's a double album. It's all about Sigmund Freud. This is a phenomenal album. I just want to say, if you're an Alan Parsons project fan, you need this. It's called Freudiana. And that's all they call it. It's Freudiana, but it is so good.
I consider that to be a Alan Parsons album, and the last great one.
Eric Wolfson, his voice is, oh God, I love his voice so much. Anyways, that's that. And then there's this. I don't know if anybody knows what this is.
Looks psychedelic.
It's Neil's heavy concept album. Neil used to be on a British show that they showed on
the young ones.
The young ones, yeah. His name is Nigel Planer. And the reason I pulled this out is it's insane. The music on this is insane. And the musicians, Dave Stewart from National Health, Gavin Harrison, from Porcupine Tree and King Crimson now, and a Pineapple Thief. And then you've got Pip Pile from Hatfield in the North, Jackazik, who is now in King Crimson. And my God, it's just so good. There's a song on here called Lentil Nightmare that is absolutely hilarious. But the whole album is like him talking and singing through the whole thing, like he's sitting in his room and he's playing this record and he's listening to it and then talking to us. And you know the way the guy talks, he talks like he's a total stoner, you know? And after Lentil Nightmare, he goes crazy in the room and he goes, I mean, during the song, he tears his room apart, throwing things around, and he goes, sorry room, sorry bed, sorry lamp. And he does Hole in My Shoe by Traffic. I mean, it's just amazing stuff. And finally, the most obscure album in my entire collection, this Humboldt County Country on United Way Records. And the reason I'm showing it is because that's me right there with the beard.
Oh, wow.
The only album I'm on. We did this in 1980. What was it? I forgot.
Everybody has a beard. Which one?
19.
Yeah, they all bearded.
They're all beards.
Oh, I'm the only one with a full beard. Everybody else has mustaches.
Point.
Point.
Yeah,
Which
point.
I see him. I see him.
Oh, all right.
All right, you damn hippie.
Anyways, this is my beard days, and it's not just us. It's not just Country Wave, but there's other groups on here. A bunch of groups out of Humboldt County, and we did it as a charity thing for United Way. And there's 2 songs by us, and it's the first time I ever got on a record, so I was really proud. But it's probably really, really obscure. I ended up, believe it or not, I ended up finding one in the record store over here in Reading. And when the guy, and I said, I'm on this. And he goes, you're kidding. I go, no, right here, look. And he goes, will you sign that? I felt like a star. The only time I ever autographed anything it was just fun. It was just funny.
Your claim to fame.
Yeah, I think it was 1981 when we did that.
What was it called again?
Humboldt County Country.
Ryan's going to try to find it.
It's on United Way Records. I don't think you could find it anywhere, really. I mean, how many records does United
I've
Way
never seen it.
Right. It's pretty rare. That's why I was surprised to see it over here in Reading, which is 150 miles away from Eureka. I'm in the center of California, and I used to be on the coast.
I don't even see it on Discogs. Holy
No,
crap.
I don't think it'll be anywhere, really.
It's that
But
obscure.
I'd like to get those 2 songs on YouTube. Somehow I'll do it. I don't know. Maybe I could just film it with my phone and put them up.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a couple pretty cool guitar solos on my Les Paul. Even though we were a country band, I played kind of like Phil Miller on those. I had that tone. I was going for that. Anyway, that's my obscures.
All right.
Honorable mentions.
Well, I'm going to go since I didn't go.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let me
I'm
go
sorry,
real quick.
Grant.
No, Rand.
I
You
did.
might-
I thought
No.
Nick was last. I'm so sorry.
No. I'm last. I'm
Got the
always
old-
last. Damn it.
I got the old.
All right, I'm going to go real quick, and then we can go around and do honorable mentions if you have it. So the one I'm going to share today, well, one of them is an artist that did a song for the Spider-Man soundtrack back in like 2003. The song Somebody Else. The artist is Blue. And there's like 2 versions of this. This is the original version of it before it came out on Columbia, and then it got reissued on Columbia, and they swapped out like 3 tracks. But I don't know if you know that song, but Blue's still putting out stuff. Basically, what I would say this is a power pop classic. If you're into power pop, you would definitely like this record. It is, the songwriting's top notch. He has Andy Sturmer from Jellyfish co-writing on several songs. I don't recall that Andy is actually on this. He might be, but he's not singing on it. But what it sounds like, the ones with Andy Sturmer, it's basically between him and Blue, it kind of sounds like Supertramp. But the production's great, the songwriting's great. I mean, you may find either one of these in the dollar bin. It doesn't matter which one you get. I mean, you hardly ever see them anymore. I mean, they're available on Discogs. They're not very expensive, but if you're a fan of power pop, I would recommend these. Very good. Up next is kind of related to this. It's kind of like this is a band or a project called LEO. And this has got Blue on it. It's got Andy Sturmer from Jellyfish singing on it. He's written some songs. It's got the guy from what's that guy's name? I can't remember off the top of my head. Well, anyway, brain problem, people. But anyway, this is a tribute to ELO. The vocals do not sound like ELO. Everything's inspired, and the production style is like ELO. This is like an ELO album that never ever came out. The songwriting is top notch. The production's top notch. The song, if I could see it, I can't see it, but the second track on here is absolutely brilliant. The slide guitar on it sounds like George Harrison just dropped down and came and laid down it's got that same kind of tonality George Harrison has on a slide. Brilliant stuff. LEO, and it's called Llamas Oogling or something.
Hey, Grant, Jason
sir.
Sheff from Chicago is on that.
He's on that too. Do you know this record?
I do. I have it.
Oh, well, for crying out loud. Now, Todd, isn't it a great record?
It is. Yeah.
I'm surprised there's someone on the planet that has it.
Except for it's called Alpaca's Orgling.
Alpaca's Orgling, yes.
Alpaca's
Well, on my
Llama.
glasses, I can't read. I can't see it. But yeah, how did you get turned on to that record?
Somebody in a Chicago message board talked about it.
Yeah, he's on there. There's a lot of different people. Candy Butchers. Gosh, what's the artist? The guy that was in the Candy Butchers. Alternative band. Can't remember. But anyway, great thing. And this is like an honorable mention. This is another one that's related. So it's the same kind of idea that LEO is, only this is called Loud Lion. And the album's called Die Tough. And basically Blues on this too. And it's a different cast of characters, different people. But what they have emulated is Hysteria era Def Leppard. I mean, if you like Def Leppard, you've got to listen to this. You would think this is Def Leppard. I swear to God. But they love the LO, and for some reason, I guess they appreciate Def Leppard too. So they made a record. I mean, the vocals don't sound like it's the same type of production. You would close your eyes and you would think it was a long lost Def Leppard album. So it's a lot of fun. Last one I'm going to mention is Greetings from Planet Love, the Fraternal Order of All. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of an artist called Andrew Gold. You ever hear the song called Lonely Boy?
Yeah.
Andrew Gold used to be part of Linda Ronstadt's band. He's the one that basically put together You're No Good and played the guitar, and he was like her musical director. Okay. He had some hits, blah, 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 had an album called Whirlwind that sold nothing. And he eventually just did jingles, and he was in a Byrds tribute band eventually. And of course, he passed away like 10 years ago. But this record was basically done in his home studio. He plays on everything. Graham Goldman makes an appearance on it. He's got a couple of people, I can't think of their names, that are singing lead vocals. What this is absolutely fantastic. If you like XTC, the Dukes of Stratosphere, you will dig this. because it's all psychedelic. It's all 60s. He does like not a Birds cover, but he writes a song that sounds exactly like the Birds. The guitars sound, the 12 string, the Rickenbacker 12 string, perfect. And there's like a Hendrix song, but if you like 60s, you like psychedelia, you like any mid 60s stuff. It's not a cheap buy though. I mean, it never sold or anything. No one knows about it. It's got crappy artwork, but the Fraternal Order of All is fabulous. If you like that stuff, if you like the Dukes of Stratosphere, you'll love this. Production's good. I don't know how long he spent to do it, but it's absolutely brilliant. That's all I've got. I've got more, but if anybody else has anything else to throw out.
Yeah.
I
have a few I'll just run through super quick. They're all kind of well-regarded albums, but not ones that you hear talked about very often anymore. So I wanted to at least just point them out so you check them out. First one is the United States of America.
Yeah.
From 1967, I believe.
I think it's 68.
Is it 68? I think this press. No, I think it's 67.
Is it?
Sure. Yeah, but who knows? But yeah, this is kind of a important album because it's like one of the very, very first electronic albums. I mean, it's still a lot of it's like psych rock and stuff, or kind of like sometimes like Velvet Underground-y type of music, but there is the first uses of electronic instruments, like which makes it really interesting. And it's a super cool album too. It's kind of hard to find an original pressing like this. I got pretty lucky to find it, but they did reissue it kind of recently too.
Came out on Sundays, I think.
I bought that reissue on vinyl, and it was noisy and dirty and crackly. I had to return it. It was awful, and it was brand new. It's badly done.
That stinks.
And it was 1968, by the way, just to let you know.
Oh, nice. Richard Thompson, Henry the Human Fly, his debut album. Really good British folk here, kind of dark, really ahead of its time. Such an amazing guitar player too. This debut doesn't get talked about quite as much as some of his later albums. It's not even on streaming where a lot of his other ones are, so it's kind of obscure. Lake, they're like soft rock from the mid 70s, kind of like Steely Danish too. A little proggy at times, a little hard rock. It's an interesting mix.
Yeah, Pete Partle likes those guys a lot. They're out of Germany, right?
Yeah, they're really good. I have the first two albums. Incredible string band. They're definitely kind of well known, but I love these guys to death. And if you haven't heard them, check them out, especially this album, The Hangman's Beautiful Daughter. Robert Plant said this is the album that helped Led Zeppelin find their way into making an album. And the Beatles really liked them as well. Wow. And then last one, Magazine, Correct Use of Soap. Great album. This is their third one. Their whole catalog is excellent. This one is a really good cover of Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself by Sly and the Family Stone. So check this one out. It's really good, like post-punk. And yeah, that's all my honorable mentions.
Cool.
All right, cool.
I got a couple quick ones I can throw out real quick.
Okay.
I don't have handy, but it's actually a band that's based out of the Birmingham area around here, called Hotel, and they came out in the late 70s, early 80s. They had a couple MTV hits, early video hits and singles. They were kind of a power pop. They could play the Steely Dan stuff in the clubs, but with their original material, it was just strong stuff. But it was just very AOR, but very, very accessible stuff. Hotel, and I think the second album was called Half Moon Silver. the singer and keyboard player Mark Phillips would go on, and he would form a band. I want to say it was called Split the Sky. I don't know if that's the correct name for it, but anyway, he would that band would eventually bring in a guy named Damon Johnson on guitar. So some of you guys might know who Damon Johnson is. He's played with Thin Lizzy. He's played a bunch of different stuff there. So he's brother Kane. Yeah, so he's been around for a long time. So that was kind of where he got his start. And then just to plug my YouTube channel, my Music Corner, this is something that a few of us are going to be yakking about, and it's this little known band out of San Antonio, Texas, called Love Coma. This album came out in 2020. So if you want to know more about this album, wait in a couple of weeks. We'll be talking about it.
There you go. Cool. Does anybody else have anything?
A couple things, just quick things. One, Chris Whitley. I forget you every day. Not I won't forget you every day. I
Okay.
want to correct my mistake there. Number two, Nick was talking about King's X. Their new album's coming out on September 2nd. 14 years in the making.
Yes.
God, it's been 14
3 days
years.
before my birthday, you guys.
They sold out at Sellersville too. I can't go.
I
saw that
wanted
too.
that album so bad.
Yeah, I just ordered that Super Shine album.
I
Yeah,
just
I like
downloaded it on Amazon.
Good.
Yeah,
Let me know what you think of it, because I'm telling
Thanks so much for telling me. I had no clue. I mean,
Yeah.
God, I love those guys.
I like both King's X.
I mean, I don't know nothing about Trouble, but I
Trouble's great.
Yeah, just what my one honorable mention that popped in my head while we were all talking. There was a band that they're still around, and I only know this because I just got an email. They're going to be playing at the Caverns down in Pelham, Tennessee. Band from the 90s. They got a push, didn't quite break through. They were called the Screaming Cheetah Wheelies.
Oh yeah.
Well, the
I
first
think-
album, they gave him a big push, and they were opening for Meatloaf on his tour. And I know because that's how I discovered them.
Yeah.
Their second album was called Magnolia. Sank without a trace, but it's a great album. It was the quantum leap forward. I mean, it's an amazing Southern rock album. Very serious album too, but the songs are all great on there. It's a moody album, not really like a sing-along type thing, but great album that I definitely recommend anyone to check out.
Jamie Laszlo's mentioned them before on Sea of Tranquility, I think.
Yeah, good band. The first album they gave a big push, and you saw it in the cutout bins like a year later.
I saw one in the cheapy bins last week. I didn't buy it. I was thinking about it.
Still, wow.
You don't see it very often.
Mm.
All right, guys. Well, I guess,
Grant, before
Yeah.
you go, I want to tell you something. You were talking about Andrew Gold.
yeah.
You know, he joined 10cc in 1995.
Yeah, whack. Well, he was on then. He did a project with Graham Goldman called Wax. And they had some
Yeah.
hits. But I can't really listen to this. Very commercial. Oof,
Have you heard this Mirror Mirror album?
no.
It's good. If you like Andrew Gold, you'll like this.
Yeah. But all right, cool.
And
Well-
you can get it for $1 or something like that. It's not very expensive.
If I see it, I'll pick it up. It's more fun to hunt in the wild. All right. Well, I guess we did it. And we're trying to keep
Yes.
this, we're about an hour and a half. So
Wow, really?
anybody else have anything? Because I'm ready
I
to.
lost track of time.
Do this one again. We could easily bring 3 more in. It's easy.
Yeah, we could do a
We could
lot
do
of
a
these
part
if you wanted
two.
to. We could do a part 29 if
You guys
wanted
want to do a part 2? We can do a part 2.
Yeah,
to. Yeah, sure.
I mean, I've got more here.
same.
We can do a part 2. We'll
I'm so
schedule
sorry.
one.
Save it.
Grant.
All right, cool. Well, guys, we will set up a part 2 because this was a great conversation. I appreciate everyone showing up. You're going to, like I've said before many times, you're going to cause me to spend money. I can just tell.
Thanks for the invite, Grant.
It's fun.
Thank you, Grant.
Hey,
Yes, thank
you're welcome. I'm gonna hit record, stop recording, and